Welcome to the Why Did I Get Cancer podcast. I'm Deborah Herlax-Enos, a small-town girl turned TV nutritionist and healthy living expert. I design health programs for the average guy or gal, including those average guys named Metallica. On September 1st, 2020, I was diagnosed with breast cancer. I asked every oncologist the same question, why did I get cancer? But none of my doctors had good answers for me. I wanted answers, and that's why I started this podcast. I want to help you to lower your cancer risk and provide self-care tips for those in the battle. I'm getting answers, and I want to share them with you. Okay, this is another podcast that I just didn't want to record because I just want to stick my head in the sand and not know about these things. But now I do, so now I'm going to talk to you about it. Today's podcast is with Hannah Dunning, also known as the Clean Clothing Chick. We talked all about synthetic clothing. So anything that's not 100% cotton, not linen, not hemp, all those things. And what I learned was incredible. Now, here's what I already knew, was that when you buy new clothing, you should wash it, because a lot of clothes, when they're shipped from other places, they're sprayed with chemicals and formaldehyde and different things like that, so that in travel, they don't get moldy or they don't get bugs or whatever it is. So you got to clean the clothes before you put them on your body, because your body can absorb those chemicals. Here's what I didn't know, is that the clean clothing potential movement in our country, it's truly the wild, wild west. And there's no government agency that's in charge of making sure that our clothes are clean. And so while lead has been removed from children's clothing, it has not been removed from adult clothing. This is a known chemical hazard in our bodies. So Hannah gave us some great tips, including, hey, if you're going to buy this type of clothing, maybe you could do this instead. One of the changes that I made actually about a year ago with my workout clothing, because I knew most workout clothing was plastic or nylon, or the stretchier the material, the more chemicals are in it. And I knew that while I was sweating, I didn't want to cover up my sweat glands with chemicals. So now I work out in, non-toxic clothing. I try to use a lot of cotton. So you got to listen to today's episode. It's actually a 2-part series. She is such a wealth of information, and I know you're going to get some great tips. You're probably going to be a little bit disturbed at the same time. But honestly, I feel like this might be the missing link, one of the missing links for why are we all so sick. Let's get this toxic clothing out of our life and move on. And let's try to do it as inexpensively as possible and good for the environment. Give it a listen. So welcome, Hannah Dunning, to Why Did I Get Cancer? I have been so excited to talk to you. You are the Clean Clothing Chick. And most people have no idea. When we think about clean clothing, we think about throwing in the laundry. No. Our clothing is full of crap. It is full of plastic, nylon crap, and it can really impact our health. So this is one of the reasons why I'm so excited to talk to you today. So welcome to Why Did I Get Cancer?
Thank you, Deborah. I am so excited to be here. Cancer survivors have a really special place in my heart. I love the work that you are doing, and I'm so grateful that you are interested in this very important topic. Thank you.
Yes. And why should I care about my clothes? Because, I want to look cute. So why can't I just go buy something, kind of cheap, that's trending and cute. I'll wear it for one season. Besides the environmental impact of, man, I'm just going to throw this away. Why should I care?
I feel really bad every time someone asks me that, because I ruin your entire perception of shopping and all the fun parts that do come with a new outfit. And, I'm a woman just like the rest of us, and it's a fun thing to go buy a new outfit for an event or whatever. So fair warning to everyone listening, it will ruin the way that you see clothing and shopping. It's a bummer that I have to be that person, but you should absolutely care, because clothing right now is the wild, wild west when it comes to health. There is virtually zero regulations around clothing. And I mean just that. We have regulations around really specific chemicals sometimes, like for example, lead has been banned in children's clothing. That's amazing. What about the adults? And what about literally every chemical out there that they're still spraying or dousing our clothes in. So
Right.
it's just something that we all need to be really aware of because nobody's looking out for us. We are in charge of looking out for ourselves under this category, unfortunately.
Yeah, no, it's really true, and I knew that clothing would be sprayed. Like when the clothing is created, it often gets sprayed with chemicals, right? Before,
Right.
which is why people say you always got to wash your clothes when you buy something new. So sounds like we need to do more than that.
For sure. What most people are talking about when they say wash your clothes, I remember my mom telling me that from a young age too. She was on this train early. That is typically going to be like a formaldehyde, which
Hmm.
is really bad and carcinogenic and completely legal, by the way. You're totally allowed to spray that. But the problem is, while formaldehyde can be semi washed out, most chemicals that are used in the clothing process in terms of the manufacturing actually become a part of the fiber itself. You can't just wash them out. And
What?
then, and that's talking about just more natural fibers like a cotton or what have you. But what's really, and I don't like to use fear mongering words, I don't want to say scary, but what's really concerning is plastic. And I think we're finally starting to wake up to this idea. When I first started talking about this topic, the vast majority of people I came in contact with, whether it be on social media or even in person, would tell me that, I'm not really worried about it. I
Yeah.
think it's fine. It couldn't be that bad,
Right.
right?
Right.
And just a couple years later now, when I bring up the topic, people are like, yes, the plastic is so bad on our bodies.
Hmm.
And that's because what plastic is itself is extremely harmful chemicals. There is no way to make plastic without thousands of chemicals for one. And most of those chemicals are in fact labeled or deemed highly hazardous and likely carcinogenic.
When I think back to the 10 years of me doing hot yoga with all these damn
I
plastic
know.
clothes on because I wanted to look cute.
Absolutely. Well, can I
Ah,
just say Lululemon, like let hats off to them for the marketing genius that they are. I mean, at my age, Lululemon was a social status symbol. I
that's true.
remember being, like 11 with no business wearing workout leggings, and I remember asking my mom for my birthday for Lululemon leggings because they're really expensive. We
Hmm.
weren't able to just go get them whenever I wanted. But the point being, they positioned themselves in the market to be this almost like, again, like a status symbol. So you have to study Lululemon and the way they've marketed. But at the end of the day, what's true is they're extremely toxic. And there's no way they can't be toxic, even if they say, oh, we'll stop using XYZ carcinogenic chemical. Okay, great. But what you are at your core is toxic because you are plastic.
Because the majority of the fabric is plastic.
Yeah,
And
it's estimated that like 90% of our closets are plastic.
wow. Okay, so I think like when my husband's listening to this podcast, he's going to think of plastic like a plastic water bottle. But
Right.
no, there's lots of different versions of plastic. So lycra is plastic.
Mhm. Absolutely.
Spandex is plastic.
Yep. And a good rule of thumb, if you're wondering what fiber is worse or what have you,
Hmm.
the stretchier a fabric is when it comes to plastic, the more chemicals it takes to create that fiber.
Oh.
So we think about leggings. It's
Hmm.
it's pretty much. I mean, there's a reason we love our leggings. It holds it all in. Or
Yeah.
Spanx.
Hmm.
That bums me out. The woman, and I'm blanking on her name, who started Spanx. She has an incredible story.
She
I love
does.
that journey. I
Hmm.
learned from it myself in terms of entrepreneurship. I don't want to demonize people. Like we didn't know. There's a group of people who did know, and we can get into that. But most of us, the vast majority of us, including business owners, don't know. I think a
Yeah.
Lululemon, they for sure know. But the small business owner who started, a company because they had a mission, whatever, I don't blame them.
Right. Right. Because we don't know what we don't know. But in this day and age, in 2025, you see influencers all over social media saying, hey, you might want to think about this before you go and exercise and perspire and get really hot in these, whatever it is.
Yeah, you made a really good point about Hot yoga. And it is totally understandable. I mean, let's be so real here. Nobody wants to wear an organic cotton t-shirt and leggings to hot yoga. I
Yeah,
understand it doesn't feel good. There's a reason we all want to wear plastic. I'm a realist. I'm not denying that. But it is really important to know that when you're working out and when you're sleeping, these are two really big categories that you should really be careful what you wear in. And you bring up a great point. The reason hot yoga is so impactful is because you are sweating everything out. It is one of the best ways to detox.
it
You're
is.
moving,
Yep.
your pores are open, your liver's given the opportunity to flush things out, which of course, per our conversation today, when you're dealing with disease or chronic inflammation, that's a really helpful thing to focus on. But now imagine your body is trying to do what it is so good at and detox, except for you're suffocating yourself with all kinds of
Oh
chemicals.
my
It is
gosh.
the adverse effect.
Yes, it is the complete opposite of what you think you're going into that class. You're working so hard. You walk out, your endorphins are high. You're just, you're soaked, but your body's like, no, no.
Mm-hmm.
Now I'm absorbing all this crap back into my system.
And it's just not efficient. If you are wanting to optimize your health, you think about it from this standpoint too. It's like, I want to do everything I can, especially again, just to reiterate, if you're already dealing with some kind of illness or maybe there's cancer in the family and now you're more aware of,
Mhm.
hey, I want to make sure that that doesn't happen to me. I need to be here for my kids. Like those are the thoughts we're all having, families impacted by cancer. And so it's not that working out at hot yoga in your Lululemon leggings will be the thing that takes you down. That's not what I'm saying. But what I am saying is that if you are doing that, your body is not optimizing the way it absolutely could.
Right.
And in a world where it seems like we're getting hit in every direction, in every category with this toxic stuff, why not get that off your body and allow it to do its thing?
Because the body wants to heal. But
Yes.
we need to help by putting the body in the position of healing. And
Mm-hmm.
this is why I'm switching over to natural fabrics. And you made
Mm-hmm.
a really good point too, Hannah, that there's two places I've changed: my bedding, what I sleep in, and my exercise clothes. Because let's just agree that it's going to be super expensive to change out your entire closet. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So I started with the two areas where I spend a significant amount of time. So I'm in bed, hopefully 30% of my life. That's kind of the gold standard. So I want to make sure what's on my body and what I'm sleeping on, organic, cotton, and a really
Yes.
good fabric. Yeah.
I would love, let's talk about bedding. I'll give
Okay.
you like my little thoughts there. And then let's remind me to get back to cost because I'd love to talk about that too
Okay.
and like how to transition because that's a huge point. And I don't think that this conversation has to be for the elite. In fact, I think that this conversation is most important for people who don't necessarily have access to crazy medical systems or what have you. So let's get into that too. But first with bedding, what we're talking about when we're talking about detoxing is critical when it comes to sleep. And I know a lot of people know this again if they're on their own health journey, but our bodies do most of our detoxing, yes, when we're sweating, which is great, but when we are sleeping, because that is the only time in the day where our liver doesn't have to compete with our digestive system.
Good point.
And so peak detoxing hours we think are from depending on your own circadian rhythm, it's usually going to be 11 p.m. to 3 a.m. And so that is a golden time for your body and your liver to do its thing. And actually not just your liver, we're also talking about your blood, your lungs, those
Mhm.
detox, and even your brain. Your brain clears sludge during these hours too. It's incredible. Our bodies are
So
incredible.
incredible. I hate to say it, and I can't believe I'm going to say it, but summer is wrapping up, and I have had the best time. I haven't done a lot of self care on my face this summer, and so I'm feeling it. My skin is really dry. When I wash my face, it just feels just kind of dull and kind of flaky. So I've started to add a couple of items back into my body facial care rotation that I haven't done in a while. One of them is the Blueberry Fusion Micro Scrub. This is such a great product. It's from the Body Deli. Forget about using this, but it's got lactic acid, it's got diatomaceous earth, citric acid. And when I put this on, you use it 2 to 3 days a week. I'll put it on in the shower and I'll just kind of give my face a little bit of a massage. And I'll tell you, my skin is a little tingly after, which I think is a good thing. It's a good thing for my skin right now. And then I'll finish by putting this vitamin C serum on, which I feel like once I've kind of ripped off, maybe that's too aggressive. Once I've kind of polished my skin a little bit, I feel like the serum just goes in a little bit better. And then I finalize it with the Phoenix Lift Oil, which just makes my skin feel so good. So if you want to see what I'm using from the Body Deli, I tell you, they are OG when it comes to non-toxic ingredients. I have been using their products for 18 years, but I've got all the information listed below, and I know you're going to enjoy these products. Use the code ENOS15 to get 15% off of your purchase. Enjoy.
So if you're laying while detoxing on top of often heavily treated, and I mean heavily treated fibers.
Really?
Yes.
Okay.
I mean, yes, because we've moved now into this area of it was how can we get the stretchiest leggings? Now it's how can we get the softest bedding? And, you see all these new businesses popping up, like the silkiest, softest, like it's not silk, by the way. It's just polyester, and so start paying attention to what fabric your bedding is made out of, because to your point with how much we spend in our bed and how critical it is for our detoxing capabilities, especially if you are currently fighting any kind of chronic disease or illness, your sleep time is almost the most important thing you can do.
I couldn't agree more. Yep. Yeah.
I do have one bedding recommendation, and I'll say I very rarely plug companies. Like even if you ask me, what are some businesses we can go look? I don't like to plug them because I love, love, love businesses trying to do the right thing, and I want to support them, and I do when I can. But at the same time, I can't blindly back an entire business when they might make one great product and then I might not be familiar with the other. So I just don't want anyone to think here that I'm like, just in bed with any businesses, no pun intended. Here's the bedding I recommend.
Okay.
And I'm not getting paid by them or anything. I just think they're amazing. It's called Izome. So it's AIZOME. And it's a German company, but the name Izome is Japanese because they use Japanese indigo inside of their bed sheets. They use organic cotton, and then it's hand dyed with indigo. Now, the thing you should know about indigo, and I'm no expert on indigo specifically, this is just what they've told me and what my own research has shed light on. Indigo itself is actually alive. So it interacts with your microbiome, and it's actually known to accelerate healing.
Really?
Which is fascinating. Yes. But the point being is not only can fabric and what we wear be really detrimental to our health, but what human beings have known for thousands of years is that it can also be beneficial to health as well. And that's the other side of this conversation. We can get more into that, but it is fascinating. And those bed sheets are really expensive, but they will last you a lifetime. You'll never have to buy a new pair.
Wow. That's really cool. And you said something, Hannah, that clothing can be beneficial to our health, which to me is just like the weirdest comment. Like, I love you already, but how can clothing be beneficial? It's just something you wear. It's something that might keep you warm. It's something that might be cute when you go to dinner with your husband. That's how I think about it.
Yeah. And that's huge. Like the psychological impacts of clothing. Okay, let's get into it. So there's two really main reasons. One, I hesitate to talk about because there's only one study that's been done on this, and you'll hear it cited quite often. I think it's an excellent study. I'm just a person who needs to see more data.
Sure.
It is about the frequency of fibers. And so you'll hear people say, well, linen and wool have high frequency. And I actually think that study is legit. And there are different ways to test that. But again, I don't hang my hat just on that point because I think we need more information. But the thing that is incredible about clothing is the healing capabilities from history. So especially with linen, that's what I really like to focus on is capabilities with linen, because Linen has been used for millennia for all kinds of different reasons. That's why the mummies are wrapped in linen
Oh
shreds
my
because it lasts
gosh.
forever. But
Okay.
also, like, there's a reason we call hospital sheets linens. It's because they used to be linen, because linen aids healing.
Wow.
Yeah, it actually aids healing. So that's why, like, during wars or what have you, they would have soldiers lay on linen bed sheets because it helped heal. It's also antimicrobial, antibacterial. So if you're trying to keep a wound clean or something, it's pretty much
Sure.
the best thing ever to put on it. Not like a Neosporin, by the way. So there's a lot of information, and history is full of just these deep, rich traditions using natural fibers. We could talk about hemp in some of the same ways as well. Hemp
Hmm.
has just extraordinary capabilities in the fiber itself.
Hmm.
So really, really fascinating. But I think the takeaway here is to understand that human beings have used fibers for all kinds of different things, including healing, up until the 1940s when plastic was introduced to humans. So it's hard for us to wrap our mind around because in our
Sure.
lifetime, we've only known plastic. But
Right.
this is how we have done things for forever.
Well, it's fascinating. You think about linen, that's how you would wrap a wound back in the olden days, I'll say it. And again, you see the pictures of wartime and hospital, and it's the linen bandages. So you talked about frequency. Is higher frequency, is it better for the body?
Yeah, that's the assumption here. And again, I want to see more studies, but frequency in general, depending on the frequency, can be better for the body. It can reset certain rhythms. It can open certain pathways in your brain. It's fascinating, especially when you start to learn how everything has frequency, like the trees. There's a reason why it's good to be outside next to trees. And it's not just because of the oxygen they release. It's also because of the frequency they emit. It's a really fascinating world of really interesting science. And it only makes sense that clothing would also have frequencies or a lack thereof. And that's when we talk about like a plastic is shown to have about the same frequency as a dead body because it's dead. It's
Hmm.
not emitting anything. It's man-made. It's never been alive. It's not real. It's just
Right.
chemicals.
It's just chemicals. Okay, I'm getting my head around the frequency thing. But I've talked to so many of my podcast guests, and they always say, we are electrical beings. And
Mhm.
so when we're grounding, we pick up different types of ions from the earth and standing next to trees, standing next to running water. All of these things impact our
Mhm.
health, our wellness, our stress levels, circadian rhythm.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So Hannah, what are these chemicals doing to us?
Oh, it's such a empowering and yet kind of depressing topic. I think it all depends on your mindset. So before I get into it, I would preface this with I do think that we are going to see a lot of change in the near future. And I think that there is quite a lot you can control, especially with detoxing. I
Hmm.
always like to start off with that before I kind of get into the nitty gritty because it can be overwhelming. And I have felt overwhelmed myself often. So
Yeah.
in clothing today, again, to bring back the beginning of our conversation, we essentially have no regulation. Now, we've had times throughout history, like for example, they used to use arsenic to get a beautiful green color and they would put it in clothes. And obviously it was driving people clinically insane and ultimately killing them.
Oh my
So,
gosh.
and
Okay.
it's the same with like lead in makeup. Like we used
Sure.
to do some really crazy stuff. And so there might be bans on like a specific thing like arsenic. Okay. But overall, we don't have any sweeping regulations as a country and as a globe typically as well, because each country is different.
Hmm.
But more or less, there's virtually no regulation on clothing except for lead in children's clothing and then some random things like arsenic and what have you. But we have hundreds of thousands of chemicals that have never even been tested on human bodies before. And they're allowed to release them before clinical testing is finished. And moreover, we have agencies like the FDA who do not oversee clothing. Clothing is not underneath their purview. So it's a loophole. Clothing is a loophole. That's why I call it the wild, wild west. There's no single agency in charge of making sure that what people put in our clothes isn't going to make us sick. And as a result, unfortunately, it is completely legal to have things like BPA, PFAS,
Yeah.
phthalates, all the really gnarly stuff that you don't want anywhere near your body is completely legal in clothing. And I will also say, this is a passion of mine, a lot of these chemicals like BPA are put in bras.
Yeah.
And when we're talking about switching over closet, which don't let me forget, let's talk about how to do that on a dime. But when we're talking about switching over a closet for women, that's why I say start with your bra. I don't care who you are. I mean, I don't even need to know your circumstances. Let's get you a clean bra. And that's sort of a journey I'm on. I'm trying to make that happen because I understand it's just not accessible. And frankly, it doesn't even exist always.
Yeah.
But the way that breasts work, and you as a breast cancer survivor, I know I'm preaching to the choir here, but we have most of our estrogen receptors in our body are in our breasts. And they are supposed to bind to estrogen. That is their job. They are constantly searching for estrogen. And the problem is a lot of these chemicals, like phthalates and PFAS, they mimic estrogen. But except for it's like, pretending to be something really good for your body and you're actually a grenade. And that's exactly what's happening when you put your bra on your chest and you have these beautiful estrogen receptors and all these pathways and pores and whatever. It binds to that fake stuff and it holds on for dear life. And I'm not saying that our bras are the sole cause for a crazy uptick in estrogen sensitive breast cancer.
Sure.
But what I am saying is, why would we not eliminate that massive factor?
Right. Why not? I mean, it's a simple step, and it's not going to cause you harm to switch to a non-toxic bra. So let's start there.
Yeah, I absolutely. And frankly, this stuff, it's not like, I don't know, I'm trying to think of an example. It's not like, oh, the butter you're using has some artificial flavoring in it. You should just switch over to the real deal, like whole food stuff with no added anything. It's more like, hey, your butter has known carcinogens inside of it. It has stuff that it has been proven scientifically, frontwards and backwards, to actually cause cancer on its own. So that's also what I'm saying. And again, that's why I don't want to fear monger, but what's in our bras is incredibly impactful. And if you look at a chart with breast cancer specifically, you'll see breast cancer generally, like the potentially genetic types, or maybe like a hormone therapy, causation, breast cancer, whatever, plummeting. It's plummeting, and it could be early detection. It could be more conversations, who knows? But the other kind of breast cancer, the kind that is impacted by estrogen, is skyrocketing the other direction. So I don't understand why we're not having a massive conversation about what the heck we are doing. It's really, really important and a huge miss, in my opinion.
And do we see those numbers skyrocketing in younger women?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
We do. And I think about my childhood, frankly.
Sure.
I mean, we made a post about this on social media the other day, and it was like, oh my gosh, I remember being like 12, going to the mall, going straight to Bath and Body Works and putting on like Japanese cherry blossom lotion, and then going over to Victoria freaking Secret and picking out, oh God, a bra, which is like, now knowing that, I'm like, oh my gosh, that is the most toxic crap I could have ever put on my body, on my developing body.
On your developing body, yes.
That's the thing, is when our hormones are most susceptible to impact is puberty, pregnancy, postpartum, and then also menopause.
Wow.
And then look at the spikes in breast cancer, by the way, at the age spikes. Really interesting.
That's fascinating. Wow. Hey guys, thanks for hanging in there with me with this podcast. It's been about 3 years now, and it's been 5 years since I was diagnosed with cancer, and I am thriving. And one of the reasons why I'm thriving is because of the information I learn on this podcast when I interview people. I tell you, I have the best guests, and they come on and they just share their wisdom, share their experience, and I get blessed out of it, and I hope you get blessed out of it too. And as long as you're here, will you do me a big favor and give me a review? I always tell people I'm going to give you a review and then I forget to do it. But whenever I leave a review for somebody, it always makes my day because I know it helps them. And here's how it helps is that when you leave a review, it pushes the podcast out to people who maybe would normally never discover the podcast. So if you could just, wherever it is that you listen to this podcast, there should be a link. You can just hit stars, 5 stars preferably. You don't even have to write anything. So leaving a review really helps me, and it helps get this podcast out to people who might normally never get a chance to listen to it. So thanks for being here. God bless you. See you soon. I hate to leave you hanging, but you're going to have to tune in next week for part 2 of my interview with Hannah Denning, also known as the Clean Clothing Chick. Next week, we're talking about, I'm going to just say it, some crunchy things. And by crunchy, I mean maybe a little bit wacky. We talk about the frequency of clothing. And she was telling me that clothing has frequency and it can be healing or it cannot be healing. And I said, all right, give me an example. And one of the things she talk about was linens. And she said, there's a reason why in a hospital, they used to say, like, let's put the linens on the bed. It was actually linen. Linen is antimicrobial, antiviral, and it could actually help in the healing process. So you got to listen next week while we unpack more of these amazing things about clothing and how to detox your closet. Enjoy. Hey, keep in mind, I'm not a doctor. And if you need medical advice, please reach out to your team. That is going to be just the best source for you because they know you. So again, I hope you enjoyed this podcast.